Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch. This is the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce Public Affairs Roundtable. We hold this once a month, usually on the fourth Friday of the month at 7 a.m. Or did I say fourth Friday? Fourth Monday of the month at 7 a.m. And have various public officials here with us to explore what's going on in our various areas of government around the county. This morning we have with us gentlemen from the county government, most notably Mayor Rogers Anderson here to my right, and also two of our county commissioners, which hold notable positions in the budget process of our county. Doug Langston, who is chairman of the Education Committee for the County Commission, and Ernie Williams, who's chairman of the Budget Committee with our County Commission. Gentlemen, this morning we want to focus on county government and sort of talk about what the county does for the business community in particular when we get an opportunity. And just want to introduce you a little bit more. Rogers, how long have you been mayor and how long were you a county commissioner prior to running for mayor?
I guess the best way to answer that, Dave, is I had dark hair when I first started. It was 1986 when I actually got involved in the political processes here in Williamson County, and I enjoyed my time as a county commissioner, such as these two gentlemen to my immediate right, up until 2002, and I became mayor at that time. So I'm in my third term. This coming September 1, that's when all of the positions start over again. I'll be on the last year of my third term, and looking forward to next year and running again for at least another 4-year terms if I can get elected.
All right, so that, and they're 4-year terms, so you're in your 11th or 12th year coming up then as mayor.
Like I said, Dave, I had dark hair when I started this.
I don't think you were that young when you started, but
Thank you, Dave.
now, Doug, I know you were a Franklin alderman prior to becoming a county commissioner. I think you ran, if my memory serves, in 1987. You were elected Franklin alderman.
Dave, I ran in 1988, a couple of years after the mayor, and I can't say I had white hair. I didn't even have any hair then. So I was elected to Franklin Board of Mayor and Alderman in 1988 and served there until 2001 and then joined the County Commission a couple of 3 years after that.
Right. Well, good to have you with us this morning. Ernie Williams, my personal connection to you was through your late wife, Nancy, who was a delight for many years. She was county commissioner for several years prior to her passing. And then you took over her unexpired term, I think, after she passed away, and have been on the county commission for about 10 or 11 years now since then.
Be 10 years, it was a little over 10 years. She died suddenly in October of 2002.
Okay.
And she'd just been elected. My co-commissioner, Mary Brockman, nominated me to take her place. And so I did. And so I've been on there ever since. I've been elected at least twice, maybe 3 times on a special election. I can't remember.
Right.
But it was in January of this year, it was 10 years. And so.
Okay. You're an attorney here in town, and why do you choose to serve as a county commissioner? How do you feel like you make a difference on the commission?
I consider it an honor to serve on behalf of my wife, number one. I mean, she took it very seriously, and tried to do what was right for her. But I think one thing about the county commission and that we all bring a different background to the commission process. As an attorney, obviously I work very closely with the courts and the clerk's office and the juvenile system and that.
Right.
and like Commissioner Langston, I mean, he's got an educational background.
Right.
Mayor Anderson's got an insurance background. And so everybody here has got somewhat of a different background, and it brings a kind of cohesive function to the process.
Right. Now, Doug, your day job for many years was a teacher and coach at BGA, as I recall. How long were you there?
I was at Battleground for 36 years, teaching and coaching there. I was in education for 46 years. I was at Shelbyville Central High School 10 years prior to that. So I was in education for 46 years.
And so you bring a very different perspective that is valuable because of the size of the education budget as it relates to the full budget. So,
He was coached by my youngest son, too.
is that right?
Right.
How about that? Rogers, your background's in insurance. You were in the insurance business how long?
About 25, 26 years before I retired.
Okay. So you understand that end of it, which makes my eyes glaze over when I start talking about insurance. But that's a big budget item here with the county.
It is, Dave. When you think, and I think back in the late 80s and early 90s, insurance, and we talk about insurance here in the county, we're not just talking about our property and casualty and workers' compensation, but we're also talking about our health insurance. And those are large ticket items that we have here for our employees and all the buildings that we have. Back in I guess it was around 1990 to 1992, Bob Ring was the county executive at that time. And we were beginning to struggle with some issues with insurance, and we had some long conversations back in those days about the best way to handle it. And under Bob's leadership, and I thought he did a great job as the county executive for the many, many years that he served here, he approached me about looking at some self-funded items, which is where I had some expertise in the area of workers' comp. And the late Jane Womack was working as an underwriter of one of the local companies here in town, and we persuaded her and convinced her that coming over here and running a self-funded workers' compensation program would be the catalyst for something bigger and better and to save us money as time went on. That proved fruitful. It took several years for that mechanism to be put into place. It was that we were able to become self-funded in our workers' comp, and that led us into our property and casualty, all of the school buildings, all of like this complex, all of the many things that we have, hundreds of vehicles from the school bus garage side all the way to the sheriff's department to landfill, solid waste, and it was a sizable amount of premiums, and so we rolled that into a self-funded plan, and a few years later, we began to do more serious risk management. We thought we were serious about risk management in those early days, but we really weren't. Then, I guess it was somewhere around 2000, I may be off a year or two, but we began to kick the tires about having a self-funded health insurance plan for our employees. Today, we have just in total employees, school, our staff that work all throughout county government. It's about 4,500 employees that we now have, which is a very, very large number when you think about it. We have a staff on the second floor that's all they deal with. In one area of our administrative complex, they deal with the benefit side, workers' comp side, and the property and casualty side. And I'm not real sure right off the top of my head, maybe one of these gentlemen would know exactly what our total insurable value is, but it is millions of dollars that we are constantly trying to, it wouldn't show it on that sheet, Dave, the insurable value. But our health insurance side, and it's a great time to get into the budget, many things are happening in Washington that come down through Nashville,
Right.
that trickle down to the local level. And one of those is the Affordable Health Care Act that has been in place for the last couple of years, and each year they implement just a little bit more of it, and a little bit more of that each year brings on some additional challenges for us here in the county side of implementing those rules and regulations. And I really do believe over the next couple of years that will be an area that we have got to concentrate in more than we are constantly doing, although we spend a great deal of time and energy. But we've got to figure out other ways to reinvent that mousetrap to continue to attract the good talent that we have and to keep the good talent that we have through our employees. Many people come to work for Williamson County, and government, as most people would know, you're not going to get superbly rich working for the government, but you have sometimes, oftentimes, benefits that are indicative of keeping people on the payrolls and certainly providing for them.
Important to the families of those people, very much so. What I'd like to do, or what we'd like to do this morning is get into the budget that y'all will be approving here shortly, in a couple of weeks, I think. And I think the overall budget, as proposed at this point, is $397 million. Is that correct? Overall for the county government?
No, we better bump it up, Dave. That was
Okay.
last year's budget.
Did I miss something? Okay.
Well, either you did or we've got some surplus money, and I doubt
I
we've
think
got
where it
that.
come from, Roger, is what they given was this, but the capital is the difference.
Okay. That was a question that I had. So how does that work, Ernie?
The total budget is almost $422 million.
Okay.
Now, put that in perspective, and actually Mayor Anderson showed me these figures. It was the year after he came on in the county commission in 1987. The budget that year was $40 million. In 26 years, we're talking about $422 million, the growth of the county.
County has grown quite a bit.
Big time.
Right. Now, Ernie, what is different in the proposed 2013-14 budget as compared to last year? What are the big differences?
Probably one of the biggest is the personnel that we've had to add, but I think it was a total of maybe 48 new people, but 32 of those were the SRO officers that are put in all the schools in the county. You know, when that tragedy happened up in New England, we at that time made the decision to put an officer in every school in the county. That
Right.
included the special school district of Franklin, so they have sheriff's deputies in those, and we think it's prudent that they all be under one domain,
Right.
being the sheriff's office.
Right. Now, Doug, specifically to the education budget, what are the big differences in the education budget this year over last year?
Well, of course, Dave, we received some state funds or state funds from the BEP program. Biggest difference, again, I think always is in personnel. We have a lot we have about 400 some individual teachers and others that are not covered by the BEP. So a lot is with personnel, and then just equipment that would be some in our capital plan, and others are funded out of the regular budget. So I'd say personnel is a good part of that.
Primary increase there. Now, the $422 million, gentlemen, is that all ongoing expenses, or is now the capital outlay, is that in addition to the 422, or is that part of the 422?
That'd be part of 422.
Okay. And does that, I suppose that probably, almost every year it includes a new school or two.
Well, this year, Dave, there are no new schools being proposed from the school board and the director of schools. Currently, if you were looking for new schools, there's got to be a new high school being built. The land has been purchased over in the Nolensville community. Also, in conjunction with that new high school, there will probably be, as far as I know, unless something changes, there will be a K through 8 school system. Now, that's subject to change. Again, that's a school board decision whether they decide just to have an elementary school. But I think the collective wisdom in that area currently is that they would have a K-8 school over in that area along with a high school. They are eagerly looking for a new elementary school down in the Spring Hill area, Spring Hill Thompson Station area, most of the area of Spring Hill, trying to find some land down in that area to do another elementary school. But this budget that Commissioners Langston's and Williams have addressed do not include any new schools being opened under, and our year starts July 1, under this July 1 through June, end of June next year in 14, there are no new schools being proposed that would need to be addressed in there. Now, that's not to say that later in the fall, in fact, we all realize that we're going to have to go to market and borrow money to build another high school that's been mentioned out in the Nolensville, and that will probably come about in September County Commission meeting, no later than October, that we would be needing to borrow that money to begin that school somewhere out in the spring of next year, along with other issues that we may have.
Now, Little Bird told me that there is a public safety building in the process of discussion. Is that, where does that stand?
Yeah, that, again, Doug wouldn't necessarily look at that during the education process, but he'll look at it on the county commission level. Ernie has been kept up with it because he's your chair this year for your budget committee, and we're doing the due diligence on that. We have engaged an architect to build a public safety building. This goes back about 4 years ago. Many people that live inside the city limits, such as you know, that they enjoy public safety from whatever city municipality that you're in, predominantly Franklin and Brentwood.
Correct.
But our smaller cities, in Spring Hill, I should throw Spring Hill, they have a public safety department. And public safety is defined as your law enforcement and your fire safety. Some of our cities have 911 centers, Brentwood and Franklin. And then some of our cities have some expanded services in each one of those. And we do memorandums of understandings. We do a lot of working together with our cities and counties because, as you know, we are not a metropolitan form of government in Williamson County. And so we try to do all of the collective things that we possibly can to hold the taxes down. But one of the things we do not have is in our rural areas where so many of our folks do live is a paid fire department.
Right.
And so we are in the process of looking to build about a $10 million to $12 million facility that will be located next to the highway department in between the jail and the highway department. We purchased land several years ago to build a hardened structure that we can operate out of and provides a lot of the services under our emergency management, our public safety area, and our 911 center. We discovered during the May floods of 2010, was that when they won?
2010, May 1st to be
2010,
exact.
that we were not adequately prepared. We got through it. We did, a lot of hands were on deck, and we were able to carry on work. But public safety, as we know it, needs to be in an area that's very secure, that's in an area that needs constant attention. Now, as any entity starts up, it can soon become its own fiefdom if you're not careful.
Right.
But I think with the right hands on deck, I think Mac and Bill do an excellent job of looking at public safety in our rural areas. All of our fire protection out in the rural areas where so many of the people sitting out here are not protected by paid people. They're protected by the volunteers, the men and women that serve out there. And particularly the one that comes to my mind is over in Nolensville. That's inside the city limits of Nolensville. but it's all operated and manned by the volunteers out there. So the way the county offsets some of this is we buy the vehicles and the capital cost that goes into that. I guess the other area we're looking at, which is under public safety, is that many of the folks should know that on downtown Five Points, the fire station, and I forget the number, somebody might bail it out to me, that the fire station for years has been down there serving that 5-mile radius that goes out from Five Points.
Right.
Well, that's probably not the best location to be having fire respondents coming out, ringing their bells and jumping on the ladders. Plus, the rescue squad who owns that building and location, they have sold it. And so that location, we've got until next spring to have to address that. And so we're going to put a new fire station on Downs Boulevard, which is part of public safety. We'll relocate that on Downs Boulevard. Likewise, we're looking at a piece of land down in the Thompson Station down around Independence High School. I think Ernie's about tired of hearing, and Doug too, about 840 is a wonderful transportation vehicle from Murfreesboro to Fairview. Make no mistake about it. All of us can get from point A to point B very, very quickly. But 840, its entire process through Williamson County, except for that little interchange down there, is in the county. So when we have a wreck, when we have an emergency respondent that needs to be had, a hazardous material, a vehicle that overturns,
Right.
that has to come from our volunteer side. And a lot of those men and women are just like the four of us sitting up here. We have full-time jobs, and for these men and women to respond, it's a passion of love. And so the sheriff has come to us, and part of the hiring process is this year under public safety again. You know, they're putting on a whole, what is it, Ernie, 3 people? Was it 3 additional people?
I think that's right.
That just to patrol the 840 corridor because of the wrecks and the accidents and the activity that's occurring out there. So as we grow in Williamson County and as we expand, we got to be able to address a lot of these needs for public safety for our citizens.
Right, and when you say that they're adding 3 personnel just for 840, that doesn't mean they're gonna have 3 cars out there all the time. That's just one at any one time, because it takes 3 people to cover a 24-hour.
Sheriff manages that, but you're exactly right. I mean, it's 1 for 8, and then you gotta have the downtime, the off time, the vacation time. But 840, we have a lot of activity on 840. For some reason, people like to travel from that corridor, not go through Nashville now when they're carrying their illegal substance. So we are beginning to see some activity out there for the people on the weekends and during the days that almost any day you go out through there, you can see some folks, I guess they're checking them out for different activities, but our activity has picked up out in that area.
Called interdiction.
That's, what do they call it? The unintended consequences of a good thing.
Well, the good thing about it, when you arrest those folks and you happen to find some of that funny weed and some of the other activities, we should see some growth in our
Revenue?
when we have auctions from time to time.
Good. I'd like to switch gears a little bit now and dig into some of the details of the budget. For some reason, y'all got it divided up into various funds, and we'll kind of look at each of those briefly, one at a time. The first one being the general fund. And I've glanced through it to try to understand it myself, which is a challenge because there's so many details, and y'all spend an entire day on it, on the budget, going over it line item by line item. I think here recently you had that meeting as a county commission. But the numbers that I see in the general fund, which is about 11.4 million of the total, $700,000 for county commission administration, I presume, and so forth. I see the county mayor line item is $692,000 now. Is that your salary, Roger?
I wish that it was, Dave, but unfortunately it's not. It goes for a lot of activities. What you're looking at, and let me set the record straight, the reason you have 3 sheets, nearly 4 sheets, of line item by line item, that's the law. And I think it is important when people leave here that Williamson County is one of only 2 counties, and that's indicative of these 2 men and the other 22, and there's several of them out here in the audience today, that believe in fiscal conservative approach to managing a budget. We're one of 2 counties in the entire state of Tennessee that have a Moody's AAA bond rating.
Right.
A bond rating,
What does that do for us?
well, a bond rate, it does a lot. It's the same thing, and you're in the financial world, so I know you know the answer to that. But it's kind of like when you go to buy a home or you go buy a car, we all have financial ratings, and that's how do you manage your money? How do you pay your bills? How do you forecast what you're actually going to spend, and how much money have you got in the bank? Does that sound familiar?
Sure does.
And when all of that is put together in this big old vacuum and they shake it around, we're very fortunate here in Williamson County that we do have some money left over.
County's FICO score is AAA.
That would be a good way to put it. And the county commission, we have raised taxes. It's never popular. There's never a good time to raise taxes. So one of the things we try to do is live with what we forecast, and you can't do that unless you have good other elected officials, other appointed and directors of your different agencies, from the court system to the school system, that you end up living with what you said you were going to do. No one is ever happy.
Right.
That's just the animal that we happen to have. But something is right that people continue to want to move here.
Right.
Something is right that the school board and the principals and the teachers are year after year continuing to turn out phenomenal numbers
Right.
for our students and for our children. And our graduation rate continues to climb. Our ACT scores continue to go up. Our people are moving here, Dave. Here we are in the month of June. It's, 6 months away from Christmas again. We're being told we're going to have 1,000 new children come into our system here in about a month and a half.
Right.
Our school buildings, except for 1 or 2 of them, are very modern.
Right.
We'll absolutely never, ever have enough money to do everything. But let me say this.
I was just ribbing you about the
Oh, I know, but
$700,000 salary, but,
I think all of these men and women that serve on the county commission, these 2 gentlemen are sitting up here, and they make $600 a month.
No, 500.
Excuse me, $500 a month. See, they corrected me. And
it's not enough in most cases.
if you do the job that these 2 do and the others that are serving our community, they earn every penny of it.
Right.
A lot of them put in a lot of extra time. I will say that the county commission budget is $700,000. That's not their salary.
Right.
That's not their benefits. That's everything we lump into a lot of areas that we say, hey, guys, you all need to get some things done. And we move money around. But understand that the numbers that are here, we cannot move money from the school side to the county side, Dave. That's just the way the law reads.
Right.
What the judges get is what they get.
Right.
If we take it out of, if these 24, 2 of 24 start taking the judges' money away without their approval,
Right.
we wouldn't have enough jail cells because they'd put 24 of us in the pokey real quick.
Let's look at some of these other line items. I see $256,000 for human resources, that you talked about that a few minutes ago. The staff that actually administrates the paychecks and so forth for a lot of the county.
How about
employees.
another way to look at it? How many people did I say we had employed? 4,500. We allocate $10,000 for health insurance. Multiply 10,000 times 4,500. What's your math?
Now, don't do that to me in front of the camera. What is that, 4.5 million? No, 45 million?
$45 million.
Goodness gracious. Lot of money, a lot of money. County attorney, 665,000.
We have three attorneys that we use, mostly Berger, Mosley, handle the bulk of our litigations and processes that we go through. Christy Ransom handles our fourth floor, our upstairs area, a lot in our codes and
Right.
that area. And then from time to time, we have to go to outside sources. We have conflicts of interest.
Election Commission, 899,000. That pays for all the election services we receive here in the county.
Well, it pays for that. When you have an election inside the city and an off-year election where there's nothing else, the city reimburses you for that, but with the county general, yes.
Okay, Register of Deeds, Sadie Wade, her office budget looks like 591,000. She's very important to the real estate community, I know, and has a large staff to try to keep our deeds all as they should be, and the mortgages in place that are secured by those deeds. Added up the numbers under community development, planning, building codes, it's about $2.5 million to preserve, I guess, the unique atmosphere that we have here in the county because of the fairly strict codes that we have, the fairly strict planning requirements and so forth. So Joe Horn, I think, administrates that department. Now, what all does that include? Rogers? Or?
Joe Horn's in charge of what we call the fourth floor. That's the gluttony of the things that you said, but our building codes, our engineering, are just to name. If you come in to pull a building permit or a developer comes in to build a permit, that process starts at that point in Joe's area, and it's through the permitting processes that we go. That we go through. Can I touch on one other, just a little tidbit, and I'll let you get to these gentlemen.
Of course.
Williamson County was the fastest growing county during the year of 2000 to 2010. I had a conversation with one of the reporters here lately. Recently, we do a TV show on a monthly basis. And I was telling Carol that the fastest growing county in the state, that included the municipalities.
Okay.
So we have 6 of those: Spring Hill, Thompson Station, Fairview, Franklin,
Noblesville.
Brentwood, and Noblesville. I get them all in? The thing that is astounding to me is that when you get outside those cities during that 10-year window, and we did have some annexation that occurred in 2000, 2001, and 2, a little bit before we went into some difficult times across this country and even trickled into Williamson County. But our growth outside of those cities did not grow. And very few people realize that's by design, and that's through the efforts of people like Joe Horn and Judy Hayes and Mary Brockman and many others, Cheryl Wilson, that make a concentrated effort to leave things the way that they are. And that's very, very difficult. But
Right.
we actually grew less than 100 people in a head count number over a 10-year window. That's hard to believe in one of the fastest growing counties, that in our unincorporated area, we had the lowest growth that mushroomed up against others. That's quality of life, and that's important to folks that serve in Williams County, and particularly these two gentlemen. Ernie's out of the ninth, Doug's from here in town,
Right.
but that unincorporated area, Doug's just as involved with as Ernie is out in the rural areas.
Well, going back to 840, I remember when it was first announced 20 or 25 years ago that there was a huge fear that that was going to change our county. But if you look around the interchanges, it really hasn't changed much, and it's because of that planning and that went into, what's going to happen when 840 comes through.
There's 2 reasons, and that keep growth inside your cities. And in the unincorporated area, it's the lack of sewer. Everyone in the county, except for a few little pockets, they're on septic tanks. And you just can't put a business on septic tank.
Right.
It does not drive the numbers, and it causes all kinds of issues. And so the answer, a lot of business people will say, well, why don't you run sewer out there? The county's not in the sewer business. We've been in it a couple of times. It's not real fun. And the other side of it is your business community and your residential folks, they'd love to have it,
Right.
but they'll live with the septic tank issues, not to have all the business driving out there. So
Right.
time will tell around those corridors of 840, but until sewer gets there, there's not a lot of activity going to occur.
Not gonna happen like what you see in Wilson County or Rutherford County. We spent about 15 minutes on 3% of the budget. And last time I checked, we still got an hour. So let's jump through some of these other parts of it. Under finance, accounting and budgeting, I know David Coleman for many years served that, and I'm guilty now of reminiscing here a little bit, but the accounting and budgeting is about $1 million. Property assessor's office, $1.5 million. Trustee's office, about $575,000, and the county clerk's office, about $946,000. Now, so they're collectively responsible for collecting all the property taxes and so forth, and paying the bills. I'd say there's quite a few checks written to various entities over a year's period from here.
Not as many as you would, used to be, because all of our county folks, and we're trying to do more and more, we just invested in a new software program that's being implemented really this week and has been through the summer. Most every bill we're paying now, particularly in the area of paychecks, is direct deposit.
Electronically.
And to the business community, you were talking about earlier, that's just a way of doing business. But for government, that's a whole new ballgame to put everyone on direct deposits. And so as we go through our processes, all of our employees will be on direct deposit. Currently, our full-times are, but our part-time, which is a vast number of people that we employ throughout the year to help hold costs down without the benefits side. We have a lot of part-time people that they'll be converted over to that on July 1st.
You put all those together, and you're talking about a little less than 1% of the budget for all of those areas. The next fund is the administration of justice. That includes the circuit court, the general sessions court, chancery court, juvenile court. So our court system in the county is about $3.4 million. And I know we recently added the juvenile judge, which is now Sharon Guffey.
Doing an outstanding job.
Recently got an award for doing an outstanding job.
I saw her picture in the paper, and Sharon has served our county very well over the last several years as our juvenile referee and several other titles that she's had, but she's a full-fledged judge and is doing a wonderful job, her and her department.
Right. So I see several things I'd like to dig into deeper there, but in the interest of time, under public safety, that's about a $16 million budget, 4% of our total. Ernie, the sheriff administrates most of that. As I was thinking about this last night, I wish we had him here to talk about how difficult it is to get the job done with the funds that he has available. How does that shake out over the year? Any changes there other than the SROs that we've already talked about from year to year?
No, that's the main, the SROs are the main additions that we did this past year. But you gotta understand the sheriff's job, number one, he's got charge of the jail. So all these other police departments, they use the county jail, and he has to be in charge of the jail. In fact, Captain Mike Dobbins, who runs the jail, received the Jailer of the Year award this past year. And they do a fine job down there. Of course, then the sheriff has to patrol the county out there. And generally speaking, you'll see them like Mayor Anderson's been talking about, the 840, which is all basically unincorporated. And they do have to cover all the wrecks and everything that happens out there.
Right.
In one of the budget meetings, I was asking Sheriff Long, why were there so many wrecks out there? There seemed to be an awful lot of wrecks out there. And there was two reasons that he basically come up with. Number one, when they opened up the new park, they had all the deer and everything had been out there. And so now you would disrupted the deer paths.
We got to get the deer trained.
Get them out there. And then when they built the other park going over towards Murfreesboro, if you'll notice, if you drive that road very often, this is the state's doing this. This is not the county doing this. But when you go over these bridges, there's a dip when you go in, which they're not up there. And so that's attributed to the wrecks that are going.
There's still one out on the western end that needs attention, so.
There's several.
I came across there Saturday.
That
night.
comes down through there. But they're in charge of, from the jail standpoint, they house everybody that are arrested through all these other police agencies around the county.
Right.
And at last count, they'd moved, they had over 400 in there. They're having to house state prisoners that's in there. And this is kind of gets me a little bit under my skin.
Right.
Is because the state can't take them because they don't have bed space.
Right.
Supposedly. Mm-hmm. They pay us $36 a day to house their prisoners. It cost us about $78 a day to keep these. So,
Why don't we just say no?
well, the last sheriff that did that got arrested down in Memphis when he tied them up to the federal pen down there and chained them to the fence, and that didn't go over too good. But it's a problem.
Yeah.
And they just recently moved 40 out, and then if you run into severe health problems, which we've had a couple of those, the county has to pick that up, even if it's a state prisoner. And then we have recently been able to move one to their special needs unit in the Department of Corrections.
Right.
Because some of these can get very expensive. And so, these are costs that people don't realize that are out there.
Right.
And it's just something that we don't have any choice to do.
Yeah. When you hear that $400 million number, it think, well, that's just way too much money. But then when you start looking at the details, it's hard to live without any of this.
Well, and some of it we can't let. It's forced upon us.
Right.
It's like unfunded mandates that come down from the federal government or the state government, and there's an unfunded mandate. We've got to do it, whatever they mandate down to us, and we get stuck with it.
Right. Next, the next item's public health and welfare. I see ambulance service, almost $2 million. Now, and this is an honest question, I thought Williamson Medical Center provided the ambulance service in many areas of the county. Is that,
Dave, the way the arrangements work, the Williamson Medical Center does have the oversight under Alan Lovett of the ambulance. I think there's approximately 100 people that do 24/7, 365 ambulance protection that services all of Williamson County. The oversight of that, and through Alan and the training of those men and women, the facility is actually located. We have located at the hospital, but we have ambulances in zones, and I am not going to try to tell you how many ambulances we've got in all the county areas. But the county supplements that to the tune of $1,943,000 a year, because the service itself does not pay for itself when you're running ambulances. As you know, when someone comes to your house or during a wreck or an accident,
right.
your bill, the bill is sent to either to Medicare or they're sent to your private pay carrier.
Right.
And because of discounts on EOB, just like we all have, that service does not stand on its own 2 feet. And so for many years, we've paid almost $2 million plus we try to buy the equipment. Again, that's a public safety issue for us, and so we try to offer buying ambulances and helping pay for those ambulances
Right.
throughout our county.
I'm gonna move you on a little bit, Roger.
Okay, go ahead.
But, what we call social, cultural, and recreational services, about $12.5 million. Now, the biggest portion of that being the parks and fair boards, about $2 million of it being libraries. What all goes into the running of the parks administration? I know
That's Doug Hood, that's Doug Hood's area, and that's almost $10 million. And when it says Parks and Fair Boards, that's not the Williamson County Fair.
I was curious about that.
I figured you were going
Dear
there.
to my heart.
The Williamson County Fair pays its own way. They're a 501c3. The libraries, they get $2 million worth of contributions, and our senior citizens and other adult activities make up the bulk of that.
Okay, good. Jumping on down, we've got economic community development now. As a chamber, we're very interested in that, but a little less than $300,000 a year. That's got to be the best bang for the buck we spend in this county with what Matt Largent has done there, bringing businesses to our county and servicing those businesses. Public transportation, I see TMA is about $1.5 million. Now, what,
That's in and out money. That's federal money that comes down through the state, comes to the local level, and we transfer it out. Every now and then we have a fund over there as you ride the vans, and we've got 100 vans throughout the Middle Tennessee area that transport people to and from work.
Right.
Once those vehicles are depreciated off by mileage, there's a dollar amount. They send us over the money, we buy new vans for them.
gotcha. They have a lot of those vans running from what I understand here in the county.
Close to 100.
And that saves all of us money in the long run. Solid waste and sanitation, about almost $5 million to dispose of most of the solid waste that's generated in this county. That's probably a pretty good bang for the buck too. Is
Probably one of the convenience centers that we have located throughout the county areas is probably, other than the highway department, it's probably one of the most used services that we have for people that don't have children in schools. On any given day, you go down to the convenience centers, there's people throwing away their bag trash,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. So those are programs, we need more of them, but it's kind of like building a rock quarry and a convenience center and a highway department. Nobody wants them next door to them, so they're very
Right.
difficult to find and locate.
Highway and Public Works, about $11 million. I'm surprised that number's not 100 million, trying to keep the roads in shape in this county. How does that number, what all does that include?
Well, you need, excuse me, I think it's important to understand that we as a county, there's certain roads that are under TDOT, that they belong to the state. So the
Okay.
county doesn't work on those roads.
Right.
The county only works on county roads.
Do y'all know how many miles of road we actually maintain as a county?
I don't.
It's
700 and a little over 700 road miles.
That's my point. I knew that it was a big number. I hadn't heard it in a long time, but 700 miles of road for us to maintain and keep paved. And
I think all but 10 miles, it's less than 10 miles that's not paved now.
wow. But a lot of maintenance to do there. And Eddie Hood, I think, is the department head there, and he has a lot to take care of there for us with $11 million. The next fund is the General Purpose School Fund. Doug, what are the I guess the salaries of the teachers are the big piece of that budget each year?
That's a major portion of, we see it's over 125 million that goes into salaries and all types of expenses to educate the children, not just teachers' salaries, but other individuals.
Right. And I see about 28,700,000 going into special education. That's for special needs.
That's
So
correct,
on.
Dave. And we have an excellent program here in Williamson County, and that is part of our budget that has grown over the course of a few years, but it's a program that we need and serves a very important part of our population.
Right. The vocational education, I was surprised that we spend $5.6 million on vocational education now. That's not the traditional things we think of with vocational, is it, or is it?
No, it's not. In fact, at two of our schools, we have at Centennial and then at Summit, we have special programs that are actually involved in 3D printing and that type of thing. That we've had more and more students. In fact, that part of our budget probably went up over $250,000 this year, which is good. We have people taking part in those programs.
Right. Got a personal story there, but we don't have time for it, so I'll,
Well, let's hear it.
Looking at dual enrollment, saving me a lot of money on college education because of some programs that are administrated by that department, and I've very much enjoyed working with the personnel in that vocational education area. 14.6 million for operation of plant. That's just taking care of these buildings, is that what that is?
That's correct. That would be doing the maintenance and things within our buildings that need to be done every year.
And then another 6 million for maintenance. I noticed there was a little news this week in the paper about whether we're spending enough on maintenance. What do you think, Doug?
Well, I think the news was more in dealing with our capital that we're doing to main, rather than in the budget right now. There was some concern that $4 million that we appropriated for capital to be spent on roofs and things of that would not be enough. But I would also like to say, as did Superintendent Looney, that is only a small sum of what we have given last year. I think we had about the same amount or less even in our capital improvements with the school, but we ended up approving at one point in time $16.9 million to add on to and do some work at our different schools. So that figure is what will be, and probably we've never let, as Mayor Anderson said at the meeting, we've never let leaky roofs go, and we don't intend to do that now. And so the sum that we see is not all that will probably be asked for during the course of the year.
Let me touch on that too, Dave.
Quickly.
I'll touch on it real quickly. Our tax rate is 231 a hundred. You can do budgeting, and there's probably several schools of thought of how you do budgeting, but one of the things that you have to take into consideration, if you bump up the budget, a penny generates about $750,000. So if I bump up that budget by $5 million, I've got to adjust that or make some allocations changes in my 231 tax rate.
Right.
If I let it go over into my fund balance and I expend that money, rather than driving up that tax rate, if those roofs need being repaired, as Doug has indicated throughout the year, it sound terrible to ask for $8 million and you get a capital request of $4 million. We did the same thing over in the general side of the county government. We asked for 10, they got 5 or 8.
Okay.
We just cut it 50%. There's a school of thought that if you've got it over in the fund balance, your savings account, and if you need it, we'll go get it from over there and keep that tax rate down.
Okay. Now, what's your phone number so everybody that didn't understand that like me can call you up and get you to go over that one more time?
Okay.
790-5700.
That's right.
Okay.
These two gentlemen understand it, and most of the people that deal in finance understand that concept.
I need a little more time to,
Dave, let me
to
add,
process
let me add
that.
one thing.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people don't understand this. The county commission cannot tell the county school system how to spend their money.
Right.
We do not have line item veto. We can only give them X number of dollars.
Right.
They determine how they're gonna spend it, and I don't think the public really understands that.
Yeah, I've been around this stuff for years, and I still don't totally understand it, Ernie, but I know there's a separation there by law that the school board has quite a bit of independence, but at the same time, you all have to allocate the money. So let's touch on two other things. We've, in that education budget, another almost $13 million just for school transportation. We could spend some time on that. $10 million for the cafeteria fund, which feeds a lot of kids year-round now, I understand. General debt and rural debt, total of about $53 million as I understand it here, going toward debt service. I broke that down. About $22 million of it is for interest. $31 million, I believe, is for principal. So even though that $53 million is a big number, at least we're paying a lot on principal, it looks like.
We are, and it's contrary to a lot of folks, this county's growing. We've got about $500 million, $500 million worth of debt. If you're gonna build school buildings at 40 to 45 million for high school, 30 to 35 for middle, and elementaries are 25 million. The way we build them, the way the growth, we're gonna have to borrow money. Now I can answer your question about Moody's AAA bond rating. You wanna have the best bond rating when you gotta go borrow that money.
Right.
None of us we wish we could pay cash for it, Dave. That's impossible.
Right.
So, again, I want to say that over the years, Clint Callicutt, Bob Ring, these men and women serve on the county commission. They've managed the funds contrary to what a lot of people may say. You just don't get those ratings because you're good-looking and gray-headed.
Like you, of course.
I was
The,
referring to
David, I could add to
Okay, Doug.
that just a moment. In transportation, for instance, we have already for next year spent about a lot of money buying new school buses, but also I think something that's very important. Our transportation department and school system asks that we have video cameras on all of our school buses, and we put that in. Probably we voted to put that in about a month and a half ago, which also is included in the capital that we have for next year. So we have already included school buses and camera and other things within next year's capital that does not do that $4 million.
We've got about 2 minutes left, gentlemen, so I would love to spend another hour trying to touch on many of these details, but I've got a couple of housekeeping items to cover. I would summarize the debt service by saying most of us as households would be happy if our mortgage was only 14% of our budget, of our salary. And that, y'all, that's part of the AAA rating and why we have that. Want to mention this morning that one area that's huge in this county is transportation and roads, and we will have back here next month John Schroer, who is our state Tennessee Department of Transportation commissioner at this time, former mayor, city of Franklin. And we're gonna have him here discussing what TDOT does in this county as far as building roads and maintaining roads and that sort of thing, and all the future projects that are coming up. That will not be on the fourth Monday. It will actually be on the last Monday, the fifth Monday of July, which I think is the 29th. And so we would invite you all to come back for that session, because I'm anxious to hear what Commissioner Schroer has to inform us about plans for Williamson County and dealing with some of the traffic we have here. Gentlemen, very much appreciate you being with us this morning. And Rogers, Doug, Ernie, I know how hard y'all work to try to make sure we get as much out of our dollars here as we can. And I know you would encourage anybody that's got any questions to give you a call personally and dig into details. So we're very much appreciative of your attendance here this morning. Wish we had more time for questions, but that's all our time this morning, and we look forward to having you back on July 29th. Thank you.